Hello, my friends. Hello, it's Matthew Street. Welcome to my channel. As always, I truly appreciate you being here. And folks, oh my goodness. You have seen, if you've watched my channel for a while, numerous videos I've done over the years with my dad, my late dad, rest in peace. He passed away a little over a year ago. He was in about 11 or 12 of my videos. You can go to a playlist I have, videos with dad, and you can see them. But the one person I never had the opportunity to make a video with was Mom, my mother. Unfortunately, she had a horrible stroke right at the end of 2013, December of 2013, and she was never the same again after that. She passed away 5 years later in 2018, only a year after I joined YouTube and started making videos. So I was never in a position where I could get Mom on a video. But I want to talk about Mom for a minute in this video because I've told you a lot about Dad and the things he did, buying me Beatles records in Boston and all that good stuff. But Mom also was part of that in my music formation, loving the Beatles and other music. In the late winter, early spring of 1970, I'm 8 years old, going on 9. And I'll show you a close approximation of what I might have looked like then. Might be a year or two off. But anyway, I'm 8 going on 9 in the spring of 1970. And I wanted the early Beatles so bad. I wanted it. I don't know where I first heard Twist and Shout, but I wanted Twist and Shout so bad. I wanted, and I knew it was on the early Beatles. Somehow I had to get it. So one day, my mother, may she rest in peace, God bless her, she used to work in the fabric department of an old department store chain called Zayres, Z-A-Y-R-E, Zayres. Now, they were a multi-store chain. I know they were up and down the East Coast. I don't know if any of you in the Midwest, middle part of the country or the West Coast heard of Zayres, but they were a chain, a big chain, kind of like the Walmart back in the day, okay? She worked in the fabric department there. And she knew they had a darn good record department. Back then they had record departments. I'll show you a facsimile. But stores had record departments. Like teens and young people would go in, even older people, and they would buy records and tapes and reel-to-reel, whatever they bought, musical instruments, and all kinds of stuff. It was great. So she said, okay, I don't know if I did something good or maybe I did my chores, whatever, but she said she would take me to Zayres department store, the record department, one day where she worked, and she would buy me one Beatles record, and I was so happy. I said, yeah, hallelujah. I will get early Beatles and I'll be rocking, right? Twist and Shout and all that good stuff. Well, we get to Zayres. We pull up in the parking lot to Zayres. And of course, remember the old cool toy rides out front? You know, put a quarter in, you can ride on the rocket ship or the horsey or the car. I wanted to go on one. No, we're here to buy you a Beatles record. Okay. All right, Mom. No quarter rides in the car. Because back then it was a big deal to your parents to take a quarter or a couple of quarters and throw them in those little car rides out front. So anyway, no, we're here for a purpose. You're going to get your Beatles record and we're getting out of here. All right? I got things to do. That kind of thing. So anyway, I get in the store. And I'm looking. And I go, looking around, where's the Beatles? Try to find it, alphabetical or whatever they did it back then. Alphabetical. And I can't find the early Beatles. Flipping through the Beatles. Where's the early Beatles? I saw Meet the Beatles. I already had that. You know that story from back when I was a little kid. Saw A Hard Day's Night. You know that story. Had that one too. One of the first album Mom and Dad got me. Something new. Already had it. Dad bought it for me in Boston. I had something new. I was beside myself, folks. What am I going to do? They don't have early Beatles. I can't get Twist and Shout. I'm going to have a conniption here and throw a temper tantrum. No, I wasn't like that. But anyway, as I'm flipping through and I'm getting frustrated, Mom's going, which one did you want? I want to watch the show. The Beatles. Well, if they don't have it, they don't have it. Pick something else. Come on, you pick something or we're leaving. Yeah, and I didn't want to start, crying if I got dragged out of the store without getting my Beatles record. So I'm like, what am I going to do? Which one do I pick? A typical 1970s teenager. He's in, there's other people in there, but this kid next to me, to me, he was a big guy, but he was probably only like 14, 15, who knows what he was. But me, going on 9, I thought he was a big guy. Typical 70s kid said, "Hey, kid, why don't you just get the new one? It's pretty cool." I'm kind of paraphrasing. I don't know exactly, but it was along that 70s lingo of, "Hey, kid, why don't you get the new one? It's pretty cool." And he showed me the Hey Jude album. And this is the exact album. This is the one he pulled out and showed to me and handed to me. Yes, it is. This is my original. As you can see, I put tape around the edges back in the who knows when. If you've ever seen my taping Beatles records video, you'll understand, but I had a problem. But that's it. All faded and brown Scotch tape now on there on my Hey Jude. But this is the one he handed me. I've got some damage in the back there, but this is it. I'll even take it out. Why not? It's too much glare. There it is. Tape and all. I'm trying to protect the binding. This is my original Beatles Again or Beatles Hey Jude. But in the beginning, I have one of the originals. Mine does say the Beatles Again on the label. There it is. Okay, maybe you can see it better on the flip side. The Beatles Again. So originally, that's what the labels were printed, the Beatles Again. Now, it came out as Hey Jude, obviously, and it's been out of print since the late 80s, the vinyl anyway, until now they've started doing reissues. Hopefully it comes out on vinyl. It was a bunch of non-album singles and B-sides. The CD finally came out in 2014 as part of the U.S. Albums CD box set, released on February 26th of 1970, which makes sense because it was late winter. It was like sometime in March or early spring, maybe late March, early April. But I was pretty sure it was March that year. She took me to Zayre's to get it. February 26, 1970, it came out, though. The cover is from the last photo session ever of the Beatles from August 22nd, 1969 at John's estate. And it made number 2 on Billboard, folks. It sold close to 4 million copies of the Beatles' Hey Jude, or as it was originally known, Again. Well, I was so happy to have this. He handed it to me, and I'm looking at it. And he said it's cool. It's a new one. Hey Jude, Revolution, Paperback Writer, I Should Have Known Better, Lady Madonna, Can't Buy Me Love, Don't Let Me Down, Ballad of John and Yoko, Rain, and Old Brown Shoe. And folks, you know something? I took it home and put it on my little cheesy stereo, little crappy. I'll show you a picture of the actual stereo body, and then there were 2 little speakers with it. I didn't care what I had for equipment. I loved it. I thought the Beatles' Hey Jude album was so cool. So cool to the point that I forgot about Twist and Shout and the early Beatles for a while. And I was all hot and heavy for this album, folks, for a long time. Even to the point that Mom and Dad later in the year, maybe for Christmas that year, 1970, later that year, they got me a Panasonic cassette player. One of the old ones that had a little handle you could carry around. You could record on it. You could put a cassette in, listen. And they got me 3 cassettes with it. My first ever 3 cassettes were the Hey Jude album on cassette, the Hard Day's Night soundtrack on United Artists, and an album called Naturally by Three Dog Night. Who remembers that one? Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog, Joy to the World was a big hit. Well, I like that song, so they picked up that cassette as well. But anyway, you get the idea. I was into this album so much that this was the first album that I had multiple copies of as a little kid. You know, up until this point, I had nothing but vinyl, okay? But this album was the first time Matthew Street had multiples. And now, like we all as collectors, right? You could probably pull out multiple Beatles albums that you have multiple copies of on different million formats, right? But for me, this was the first, so it's special. Had it on cassette, had my original vinyl that the kid handed to me in the Zayre's department store, and I love it, folks. So you know what? That day in early spring, late winter 1970 was a day of reckoning for Matthew Street. A lot of things special happened that day. It was the first time I ever walked into a store with one of my parents and bought my own Beatles album that I wanted, that was suggested to me, because prior to that it was my parents giving them to me for gifts. First one that I walked into a store and picked out. So that's a big day. Big day. And it's a big album for me in my life. And to this day, I still, excuse me, folks, talking too much. Got to get some water. Still love it. And I still think it's one of the best Beatles compilations ever. What do you think about the Beatles Again or the Beatles Hey Jude? All right. Was it a big thing for you when you were younger? Are you too young to remember it? And now you maybe got it on CD or you bought a used vinyl? I'd love to hear your stories about this album, folks, because it means a lot to me. Like anything with the Beatles, Mom and Dad, I'll try to show other pictures of Mom up here, but here's a picture of them in the later years, obviously. Just a nice picture of my Mom and Dad that I like to have in my music room here. And I miss them. They're both, they were good parents. They did the best they could. Are any of us perfect people or perfect parents? No, but we all try and do the best we can. And my parents truly did to be the best parents they could be. And I'm really proud to be their son. I love them and miss them. And give me some stories. If you feel the same about your mom and dad, maybe they turned you on to music or helped you with some interest in your life, please feel free to share. I'd love to hear it. Folks, thanks for being here. Hope you enjoyed this little day of reckoning about the Beatles, Hey Jude, or the Beatles Again album. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Helps my channel grow and helps me be able to bring you more content like this. And I thank you. So have a great night, and I will be back very soon to see you. I promise. Bye-bye.